Hi, everyone. My name is Kinley, and I'm the president and CEO of Parks California. For those of you who may not know about Parks California, we're the statutory nonprofit partner to California State Parks. What does that mean, you may ask? It means we work across all 280 state parks in the state of California, ranging from urban to wilderness, historic, and cultural parks. Today, we're thrilled to welcome you to our third Facebook Live event. We're here having those conversations because of our core mission, which is to ensure both that our state parks thrive and that they're welcoming to all of us. I want to hear from you too today, not just from me, not just from our guest. So make sure you give us comments while you're listening in, ask us questions. We'll answer them as we can along the way, but also tell us where you are. I love to know where people are tuning in from. Again, on this third Facebook Live, I come to you from foggy, gray San Francisco. I hope you're all having better summer weather. We've had people join us from across the US, across the state of California. So I'm excited to know if anyone is joining us from further away from Vermont or Arizona, which is where we've had people come to us in the past. Special shout out to my mom, Lori Walsh, who's in Arizona, tuning in for the third time. I always appreciate her support and the screenshot she sends to us afterwards to use on our social media. Thanks. So here we are today. I'm excited to let you know we're joined by Sedrick Mitchell. Cedric is California State Parks Deputy Director for Community Engagement. This division includes several offices: the Office of Grants and Local Services, of Community Involvement, and the Office of Workforce Planning and Recruitment. So, excited to welcome Cedric to the discussion today. There he is. Cedric, thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Kenley.
Hi. Thanks also for making the trek to your office. You have a great backdrop there. I know I've sat with you there before in the past with our team, hearing about the great work that you do. I do have to share a funny story, Cedric. I hope it's okay. You and I first met by phone about a year and a half ago when I first joined Parks California. We had a 30-minute call scheduled, and I think we talked for over 2 hours. I
Yes,
don't
we
know if
did.
you remember that. I have to say, for those of you listening in, once you start to hear from Cedric, you'll understand why. Not only is what he speaks about inspiring, but it also is such important work. So, without pausing any longer and hearing only from me, Cedric, why don't I ask you the first question just to get us started today?
All right.
I know that you see nature as a tool for social change and a tool for activating people. And can you talk to me a little bit about what that typically looks like, the kind of work you do, and also how it may have changed in today's uncertain times?
Certainly. Well, first of all, I think it's important that we put into perspective how we're thinking. And one of the things that I think we're all in agreement on is that nature has its own magic and it has the ability to transform lives just by being in its presence. The other thing is that when you think about nature, you think about it from your personal experiences. Often ask people to reflect back on when they first had their first connection to nature and how they felt, and we go through a little series of about a minute and discussing what they heard and maybe how they felt at the time and what they saw in their as they close their eyes and reflect on that. To the person, it seems that everyone reflects on a positive experience when it's very personal to them, and we want to make certain that the common denominator of nature being that personal experience is something that everyone has a chance to do. I think over time, we've all been in agreement over the decades that we need programs to give people access to the outdoors. But one of the things that we tend to do is we tend to recognize our own connection with nature. And then as a result of that, we understand that there are threats to it. And what we do is we often go into a semi panic. We need to make sure that everyone knows that the earth is getting warmer. We need to make sure that everyone understands that this beautiful thing that we've fallen in love with is slowly slipping from our hands. So we begin to educate and grab people and fill them with information. The thing that is often that we've seen over the years is that we forget that nature is a personal connection. So we forget to give people the opportunity to make those connections on their own. So what we've done through our design of programs over the last decade and a half, and the review of those programs have told us that if you give people the opportunity to make their own personal connections, doing things that are relevant to them in nature, that those connections will be long lived, and that also will spark in them a desire to be stewards, take care of that. In the same way that we feel those threats, we have to trust that people are also going to feel the same thing. So a lot of the programs that we design for adults and for youth are designed around things such as team building, communication development, civic activation. We do that in a 3-day, 2-night setting, typically in a state park. While camping is taught, it's not the emphasis of what we're there for. Camping is one component of a series of things that lead a person to that own time, to their own moment when they have that moment of self-discovery. What we've found over time is that when you can activate that in individuals, they become so inspired that they go out and they begin to work within their own communities to develop greater lifestyles for everyone. To give you an example, the programs that we do with youth and adults, we ask that when they leave our program that they go back and plan outings for others in the community. We also ask that they do a public service project. We know after looking at our data over a 7-year period that for everyone that goes through our training programs, the youth that we send through, that they on a basis of 7 to 1 usually take 7 other individuals out into an outdoor adventure experience, whether it's their family, friends, or just individuals from the community. And we also know that they become extraordinarily powerful when they're doing their community or public service projects. The ratio for that we discovered was something in the neighborhood of 20 to 1. And so the exciting thing is that thousands of people are engaged in the natural world. They're engaged in discovering it for themselves. And at the same time, it's addressing the issues of access and service to people. So starting with that very basic principle, we've gone forward with plans to always think in terms of when we develop a program, whether it's a grant program or whether it is a program aimed at community members and empowering them, that people have to be thought of first, and that we have to have trust that they're going to be willing to do what is necessary to improve the quality of their life. Many of the people that we surveyed who come to our programs, and we've trained over 3,000 youth and a number of adults in these programs, and to the person, it seems they come for reasons that aren't necessarily they wanted to go camping. What they are there is because they're tired of the conditions that are in their own communities. Maybe it's that they don't have park space, or perhaps it's drugs and alcohol addiction that is going on. So designing programs that are trying to make certain that the communities are going to be included and giving them license through empowerment to have their voices activated is incredibly important for us to do so. Um, when we look and talk about community empowerment, it goes beyond just the idea of access. Access and diversity and inclusion are not things that you can deal with just on a when it's a convenient time. You know, we're in a desperate time right now with the pandemic and COVID-19, and it's definitely creating many challenges for us to stay on this path that we've discovered. But we don't defer from that. One of the things that happened most recently is the legislature and the governor have invested $395 million into Proposition 68 that we will be administering over the next few months. And immediately people began to say, should we do community-based planning because we can't meet because of COVID-19? And our response is that no, we're still going to have people responsible, but we'll have to act accordingly within the health rules and guidance. So we provide some guidance by producing documents that give people the opportunity to use mediums like this as a way in which they can connect to communities. But the idea that we are going to spend dollars and that we're going to develop projects that are going to be lived in communities for years to come and not talk to them is not acceptable. Over time, what we are trying to do and what we believe is a valuable tool is that we have developed systems that give rise to people's voices. One of the things that we noticed in years past is that oftentimes communities, for one reason or another, whether it was just simply not knowing that the community needed an investment or not having dollars available to them. People were not consulted about projects that were going into communities. We often found that planning processes didn't really allow people to be engaged actively in the process. So as a result, many people felt that their voices were not being heard. We did a series of focus groups, the team and I. We went out to 31 different locations over a period of time. We had meetings in parks, we had them in community centers, we had them next to the LA River. We had groups of 5, we had groups of 50. And we spent 3 hours or so at each one of those talking and listening to them about what their concerns were about parks and what their concerns were about the service and quality of community care. And one of the things that we came up with is a very clear picture that in most communities that were underserved, they didn't feel that their voices were being heard. Through community through the process that we use for community-based planning and developing projects, it's an incredible process that allows for multiple generations now to come to the table and begin looking at projects. But that requires all of us to take a second look at ourselves and take a look at how we're doing things and be willing to step out and do something a little bit differently. So we require now, for example, if you're going to submit a proposal to us, you have to have at least five community-based meetings that show an evolution of thought with the community on how that park or that recreation facility is going to be developed. The thing that was so miraculous about this process over the last year, and mind you, we started this in about 2007, but last year we had over 100,000 people from California's most underserved communities engaged in the process of talking about the quality of life, and they were having those conversations with public officials who were in the position to do something about it. So healing those relationships, seeing people come to the table and work collectively to put forth a proposal, it was more than just the proposal because we don't have enough money to fund everything. But what it did is it sparked an interest. One of two things we've noticed have happened over these years. Either communities receive a grant for a project that's going to be transformative, that literally improves the quality of life and that the residents love and respect because their vision and spirit is in it, or they also become civically engaged in a process of talking about the quality of life, and that leads to other conversations that only improve community. And park spaces, open spaces are always a part of that. It's not a mystery that communities that seem to thrive have places where they can go and they can relax, they can walk, they can do those things that help them to connect with nature and and be a part of the healing process for them. So putting these kinds of facilities into communities that don't have them is not only phenomenal, but because they reflect the community's pride and spirit, we noticed that when you have a groundbreaking or when you have an opening, that hundreds of people show up and that they talk about the park as if they own the park, which they do. The long-term interest is that we hope that parks will be better kept, they'll be utilized more, so underutilization becomes a thing of the past, that they're safer because they're designed with that in mind by the people who are living in the communities, and ultimately that these parks will be passed from one generation to the next over time, and that the pride of knowing that a parent, a child, or grandparent helped to get that park and community is something that is not only inspiring for us, but it's government listening to what people are saying and then putting into action the opportunity to make a difference. So, talking to people and engaging with them, whether it's in training programs, whether it's in any developing plans, we have to begin to be more impressed with the community coming together with butcher paper and crayons and telling us what their desires are, and then professionally bringing that vision to fruition, either through plans or through funding that will ultimately give them the resources they need. It all goes back to one simple thing, though, and that is people connecting with nature on their terms, whether that is in Calaveras Big Trees, or whether it's at Yosemite, or whether it's in a local park or simply in their own backyards. It has to be personal and it has to be connective. We also have noticed over time that when people have personal connections to nature, that they become stewards of that, that they don't want people to take away the thing that is most important to them also. So again, we have an opportunity to inspire stewardship, but the stewardship is not based on fear that we're losing something, but instead it's based on a love and a passion that more people are engaged in and want to protect and keep for themselves and their generations to come.
Cedric, that's amazing. I think, you know, every time we talk, there are these things that you say to that I think are so important. That nature has its own magic. That most of us know that to be true, but more importantly, that it's a personal journey for each of us. I think is such an important comment. I'm a true believer in public-private partnerships. I think this conversation about the good that government does is such an incredible part of this as well. You've had over 2 decades doing this kind of incredible work. And I really love this concept and fundamentally important thing that you said, which is that you have to connect with nature on your own terms, right? This is not about me telling you how to do it. It's not about you telling someone how to do it. And I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. And thank you for these beautiful thoughts and also for the amazing work that you do. Unfortunately, I think we are really out of time already today. Um, it's it's so wonderful to hear from you again. I loved getting ready and warming up for this discussion because I got to see your face a few times. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again when it's safe to do so. For those of you who want to know more about Parks California, you can visit us at parkscalifornia.org and stay tuned. We've got a new longer format series that's going to be coming starting on August 13th. And I will just let you know I'm going to be on site in a beautiful park up north. So I'm excited to welcome you all to that soon. So stay in touch with our Facebook page and other social media accounts so you know what we're planning for you in coming months. Cedric, again, thank you so much for being here. And thanks to all of you for listening in. Take care, everybody. Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Thank you.